Coach Ben David. I just learned.
Yeah.
You were telling me about how your parents were into the significance of the names.
Yeah.
And yeah, like Ben David is my actual name.
Yeah. Yeah. So people call me Ben because it's easier.
Yeah.
But my name is spelled Ben hyphen David. It's a Hebrew name. Whenever there's a hyphen, it's called a makif, combines two different words to have a better significance. So Ben means son. So the name Benjamin, super common, means son of the strong right hand or son of my right hand. And then Ben David means son of the beloved of God. Okay. David means beloved of God.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice, man. Nice. And we're downstairs. We were talking about just how life is kind of crazy, right? How it takes us in different twists and turns. And, 1 second, one moment, somebody's on top, right? And I was just telling you a story of, like, there was a couple friends, right? And they both did jiu-jitsu. One is, like, lost, not sure where he is in life, and he can go one direction and the other. And the one that really had everything together was, like, the top of the food chain, like, leader. And then fast forward 15 years, it's like reversed, right? Reversed. And the one guy that was kind of lost is like got everything together, got everything going for him. And then the other one is kind of lost and not sure and,
Yeah.
at, different place, totally different place.
It's true. Like, even for me, I thought I knew what I wanted growing up. And even like as I grew up, I thought I knew what I wanted, but I had no idea how to get there. But because I had a drive to do something, significant in my life, I always kept pushing myself to find whatever gave me a certain type of meaning. But I have friends that, like, they had things handed to them, like very well off family wise. They were super smart in school, didn't struggle like I struggled in school. And they just seem so unhappy nowadays because they had everything kind of given to them. And they were kind of similar thing, right? The people that you thought would be very well established, late 20s, early 30s, whatever. They're the ones that are kind of just like dead end job, not really excited about life.
That's what it was,
Yeah.
It's interesting. It just also goes to show you, right? We were talking about how you have to stay humble and grounded and down to earth because one moment you're on top and the next moment you can lose everything, right?
Yeah.
But if you have, keep grounded and stuff, it's all good,
Yeah, yeah.
Stay humble because we're all fragile being human, right?
Yeah. I'm sure, it's been said 1,000,005 times probably in here, but jiu-jitsu is that great humbling activity to remind you that whatever you think you have going for you, you can always be humbled, and you should allow yourself to be humbled naturally, like on your own, because hopefully then you will learn to take a step back and have perspective. And then whether you're on the mat or off the mat, that perspective, taking your step back, will help you to find the next path forward and always be moving forward. If you don't move forward, then you're just going to get stuck or die.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. Alencar. So people they meet you and they're like, you're very white, right? And you're like, I'm Brazilian. You start speaking Portuguese.
Yeah.
So tell me your background. Tell me where you grew up and just your family and everything.
Yeah. So I was born in São Paulo. Both my parents are from Brazil. Both born and raised in Brazil. I was supposed to be raised in Brazil, but kind of. But just job circumstances for my parents, specifically my dad, right before I was born, kind of changed a lot of that. So my dad was born in Bahia.
Wow, okay.
And he grew up.
He's Baiano.
He's Baiano, yeah. People are very surprised by that.
Yeah.
My dad's from Bahia. A lot of my grandparents, or my grandparents and my older uncles and stuff on my dad's side, they're from, Ceará, which is even further more,
north,
separated from the rest of Brazil. And then my mom was born in São Paulo, but she was raised ever since she was a teenager in Minas. But she was raised in Uberaba.
Okay.
Yeah, so a little bit away from
Belo Horizonte, Minas Gerais, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like the next major big city outside of Belo Horizonte is Uberaba, but it's more of like a college town.
Gotcha.
So they were both from Brazil. They met in São Paulo because my dad's dad, my grandpa, he was a big pastor in São Paulo. My mom's family, my grandpa on my mom's side, he was one of like a very well-established farmer.
So your grandfather was a pastor?
Yeah, yeah. My grandfather on my dad's side is a pastor. I think all of my uncles on my dad's side, all pastors.
Wow.
Very religious family growing up. My dad was a pastor. He stopped because it's not an easy life, and he wanted to be able to give us more, more easier lifestyle because he was working as a pastor in Brazil and then as a minister. But it's difficult to raise your kids earning more money in Brazil, but when we live up here in the States. So, anyways, my parents, they met because my grandma...
Going back to that fine balance of struggle and what's good and what's bad for your kids, right?
Yeah.
Who knows what's good and what's bad for the, which is better, right?
Exactly. Yeah, because like I said, I was supposed to be born in the States, but raised in Brazil because at the time that I was being born, my dad started doing kind of like televangelism ministry where he would film televangelism programs in the States and then send them down to Brazil.
Gotcha.
But we were living down there. And then it was like this back and forth every other month. We were in California or Florida where I grew up and then Sao Paulo. And then eventually my mom was like, I'm fed up. Let's just stay in one spot. So we ended up moving to South Florida and that's where I grew up. Yeah. Me and my 2 brothers.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And then grew up in South Florida ever since I was 5. So I remember still learning English.
Like Miami?
Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah, same.
It was like Boca Raton, Fort Lauderdale.
Gotcha.
We moved around a lot, either because we had a couple of houses that
You had some family there?
most of my family's still down there, on my dad's side and my mom's side.
In Florida?
In Florida, yeah.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, I would say like 70% of my family's down in Brazil, and then a good amount because, Latin families, huge families.
Yeah.
On my dad's side, there's 11 brothers and sisters.
Wow.
On my mom's side, there's 9. So I got like over 30 cousins.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I've always loved that aspect of big family. And so grew up in South Florida with a lot of my cousins and everything, but we moved there when I was 5. So I remember watching TV, learning how to speak English, watching a lot of cartoons and stuff like that. It's funny because one of the reasons I wanted to become an actor, move out to LA and pursue that is because of the influence that television had on me as a kid. My brothers are both they will attest to being more introverted and more techie. Whereas for me, I was like, I want to be outside. I want to be playing sports, all that stuff. And I think in part it's because of like movies. Space Jam, The Mighty Ducks, The Sandlot. Those 3 movies in particular, like, not only taught me English, but taught me what it was to like have that kind of like outside playing, having sports and fun like that aspect of life that, nowadays everybody's like this on their phone and stuff. And that was a big aspect of like me wanting to always be energetic and outdoors and doing stuff. But we grew up there and I would spend summers down in Brazil. So every June, July, and August, we'd be down to visit family.
Did you guys speak Portuguese at home?
Only Portuguese, yeah. We, as the boys, we would respond oftentimes in English, but my mom always responded, mainly my mom, would only respond in Portuguese. To this day, she only speaks in Portuguese with us. Now that Celeste is in the family and my older brother also got married to an American, she'll speak more English just with all of us, but when it's just us, only Portuguese, yeah. And that's the way that like we've always retained it. I've always felt that I have like a bit of an accent, when I speak in Portuguese, but it has more to do with the way my brain processes information. Because I was educated in the States, I think in English, the way that we'll say like, oh, I had to take a class. I took that class. If I translate that directly to Portuguese, it doesn't make any sense. It's eu tomei uma classe. Tomei means like I drank a class. It doesn't make any sense. So the way that you translate it directly doesn't make sense. So you have to say like, eu fiz uma classe. I did a class. So stuff like that is where it just takes a minute for my brain to kind of re-transition into Portuguese mode as opposed to like English mode.
Yeah.
Every time I go to Brazil though, like growing up, it would take me like 2 weeks to adjust and then I'm like back into Portuguese mode. And then when I come back for school, I would almost be doing the reverse where I'd be speaking in improper English.
So many different Latin cultures, right? In Florida.
Oh yeah.
We went to Orlando for the Pans, right? And my friend, like a longtime supporter of mine, he lives in Celebration.
Oh yeah.
Orlando, right? The neighborhood by the Disney World, right?
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, they're like almost everybody, 90% or something crazy like that is like Brazilians in that town. Yeah. And it's like movie picture perfect, right? All the neighborhoods and all the lawn, everything, the houses, right?
Yeah. I have like 2 sets of cousins that live right
that
there.
Live in Celebration, yeah.
And so it's funny because I've thought about like
we went to get breakfast and it was like all Brazilians, the whole place, the whole like town.
I've thought about that because like Celeste didn't really know any Brazilians before me. She had met one person before, and when she started our very first date by accident, I pulled out the Brazilian card and I started speaking Portuguese on the phone. And then she was like, what was that?
What?
You know, because I think I was like getting in an argument with my dad on the phone or something like that. And she was just like, you speak a different language? I was like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm Brazilian. And she was like,
what?
yeah. She was like, what?
I think I looked at you like that too when you saw me, when you started speaking Portuguese to me.
I thought you were Brazilian because your Portuguese is really good.
Yeah.
And I was like, finally, someone like me, a white Brazilian like that. But your Portuguese is really good. I was very shocked to find out that you were like American and then
my accent's really good.
It's really good, but you practice a lot. That's the nice thing. You know, for me, when I speak in Portuguese, when I struggle a little bit, I find it's because of lack of practice.
Yeah.
You know, I work at the Cheesecake Factory for like that side hustle thing.
Yeah.
And I speak more Spanish there than I do Portuguese. Spanish and English. So many guests only speak Spanish. And then every once in a while, there will be a group of people coming in from Brazil, and my brain will like freeze because I'm used to speaking in Spanish at work, and then I have to speak Portuguese, and I'm like, hola, ¿cómo estás? And they're like, damn it, no, that's not it. So I have to restructure my brain a little bit. But yeah, that very first class, that was cool because I had seen your name. We had just moved to Burbank, only like a couple months before, I think. And Celeste and I both agreed, like, we need to get in shape. We just got married. Let's like get into a good habit of being like a
How'd you guys come to LA?
Couple.
Or how'd you move to LA?
Yeah, so I grew up in South Florida, right? And after I finished high school, I didn't want to go to college initially because, like I mentioned, I struggled in school a lot. I was very much like go with the flow. I always knew I wanted to do something important.
But to sit down in a chair and
study. I just wasn't like with school, and I think in part it didn't necessarily have to do with like anti-education. It's because I didn't like the way that the school structure is. I've more recently in the last couple of years learned that like I learn better through audio and then through like kinesthetic learning, you know, those different styles of learning.
In jiu-jitsu, right?
Jiu-jitsu for sure, yeah. I mean, even outside of jiu-jitsu, you know, when I started even taking acting classes in LA, there's different ways of memorizing. Like I am not good at memorizing, and people in middle school and high school, whenever my history teacher would be like, okay, say the preamble to, you know, the Declaration of Independence or whatever, because we had to memorize it for extra credit. And I'm like, I know the first 3 lines. And they're like, how do you want to be an actor? And in my head, I'm like, I don't know, but I know I want to be an actor. So I got to figure that out. And then I moved out here, and there's different ways to memorize. You know, you can memorize with your body. You can do different kind of things where, you know, you start to memorize by incorporating motions. And then as you memorize that way, then you can retain it in your brain.
You said motions?
Yeah, with motions.
Like movement.
Movement, yeah, for sure. One of my main acting professors since I moved out here, his name's Scott Sedita. He learns the same way as me. So when he has like a whole script, he'll beat it out and he'll like write down like these are the moments, the different intentions and feelings throughout the script. And then for each intention, he adds a different movement. That way, as you're memorizing the line, you're saying it, you're doing whatever it becomes a part of you, and then you do it over and over and over and over again. You know the reps, and then when you have to perform it, you've done it so much it's already in there. And I didn't know that you could learn any other way other than here's the paper, repeat it 1,005 times. And growing up, that made me feel so insignificant, and it made me feel like I was an idiot because why didn't I learn like the other kids? You know, I think people probably would have said that I had ADD or ADHD or whatever.
Learning disability.
Right, all that stuff that like, you know, maybe some people have, you know, actual significant ADHD or whatever, but like I don't think it's that. I think it's people learn differently.
For sure.
You know, there's a great TED Talk from, I think when the TED Talks first started, and it's like Sir Ken something. It's like a British guy, and then he's talking, you might have seen it, it's very popular on YouTube, but this guy's talking about how the lady who directed the choreography for a lot of big Broadway shows like the Phantom of the Opera, Cats, all that stuff, they told her parents that she was had learning disabilities and that she was going to have to go like a school for special kids, all that stuff. And the parents were freaking out. They were like, what are we going to do with our daughter? And they took her to a shrink, and the shrink was like, give us 1 second, and like turned on some music, left the office, and the little girl started dancing. And the shrink was like, she's not special or anything like that. She's just a dancer. Put her in dance school. She learns by moving.
Damn.
So
genius. That's smart.
They put her in that dance school, and she became one of, if not the most successful choreographers to ever work in Broadway. And so when you limit people like that, you really start to ruin potential. And I think
have you seen Scott Sonnen's TED Talk?
I think I don't think so.
You know, he was diagnosed with like learning disabilities. He was dyslexic, you know, And it's like, yeah, he finishes, right? Like if you judge a fish by how he climbs a tree,
Exactly.
right? Like they're gonna grow up thinking they're stupid, right?
It's horrible.
When they're actually a genius. He's like a suppressed genius, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I I wasn't allowed to think that or like have those opinions growing up. It was like do school or you're disappointing us type of thing.
Right, right.
And so after I moved out here, so I finished high school, I didn't want to go to college. I was ready to join the Marines. I had all the paperwork and everything because I always aspired to have that sense of like camaraderie and also like bigger purpose. And I felt like as even in high school, I felt like that I might be able to find it there. So like I went to the recruiter office by myself. My mom and dad were super mad at me. They were like, "What?" Because also in Brazilian mindset, it's like if you go to the military, you're forced to go to the military because everyone there has to do the active duty. Like you check in when you're 18, and then very rarely do you get to like be relieved of duty. And they're like, "You don't live in Brazil. You don't have to do this. So you're gonna volunteer to do it for America." They were just very confused by it, and I think in part that's a big cultural divide between me and my parents. You know, there's certain aspects of like living in America where like now I have tons of friends here that like pro 2A. You know, people have guns in America. For my parents growing up, they're like guns are for criminals and cops only. And so when I tell them that like I went to the gun range and shot with a buddy of mine, they're like, "What? That's not normal," type of thing. So it's gotten to be a little bit more common for them as they've become more and more Americanized over the last 30 plus years. But I just remember like having those kind of cultural divides. And in a certain sense, that was one where like I wanted to join the military because I thought I'd have a little bit more sense of purpose. And even then I was like, college is expensive and I don't know exactly what I want to do. I understand the reason behind it, but I don't want to just go to go. Anyways, my mom and my dad.
Did you play sports in high school?
Yeah, a little bit, but I was I played right bench. I was like, I was not.
What sports?
I played football.
Okay.
So in football, I played strong safety and wide receiver, but I was not the biggest safety, and then I was not the fastest wide receiver. So I was always like second or third string. I did it mainly to be with my friends. I was always like just trying to have fun. I was always trying to have fun with my buddies, especially towards the end of high school. I was like cutting a lot of class. I think we had like A, B, C, D block schedules. So it's like you have A through D every day, and then you have A days and B days. Anyways, it's like 8 different periods, and each period can count as an absence if you miss it. But at the end of my senior year, I had like 150 absences, and my headmaster came up to me and was like, "You're gonna fail. We're not gonna let you pass if you miss like 5 more days." And so I was just like, I was getting in trouble a lot because I just didn't care to like do well in school because I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I felt like the system was kind of like shunning me for the things that I did care about. Because I played sports in part because I like to be active and my friends were in it. But I also did a lot of like other activities. So I was active in school. I did theater a lot. I performed in a couple different shows there. I started when I was in late middle school getting into the art stuff. I was always very like artistic. My mom's a concert pianist.
Okay.
So before she married my dad, she was going to a conservatory to be like a concert pianist. And then she stopped halfway through because they got married and they moved to the States. And then she helped my dad in the music aspect of their ministry when they first got married. And my dad would preach, she would do music. And so I always grew up around music. So I'll play the alto sax. I used to sing in choir. I don't play guitar or piano anymore, but I grew up around it a lot. So I have like general knowledge of guitar and piano, but I played alto sax for like 8 years. So a lot of people are surprised by that too, because, just I don't flaunt it. It's a skill that I have, and like if I ever need to use it for acting or whatever, it's there. But I know that was always a fun thing that I like to do, and I like to make myself more of like a Renaissance person, have lots of abilities and skills because it's nice. You seen like The Sound of Music before?
Yes.
Yeah, that aspect of like a very musical family, that was my mom's family. My mom's family, every single brother and sister either plays an instrument or sings or does both, and they would like sing and harmonize together. And so I grew up around a lot of that, a lot of like very musically gifted people. And then on my dad's side, some of them are a little musical, but for the most part, they're very just like energetic. They're always wanting to do stuff, always coming up with like different activities and stuff for like, especially us as like nieces and nephews growing up, we were always like, what's uncle, whatever gonna be doing? They all have like very obscure biblical names. So whenever I was gonna say like my uncle Jidauchi, and then I have an uncle.
Jidauchi?
I have an uncle Jidauchi, an uncle Jair, an uncle Joji, an uncle Libni. All these names that like you're reading in the chronology of the Bible that you skip over. That's their names type of thing. But it's neat because they all have like a significant part in my life that I remember very key moments of like them always lifting me up and making me into who I am. Anyways, going back to what you asked, finished school, wanted to join the Marines. My mom begged me not to. And she's like, just apply to colleges. Just try. And so I was like, okay, cool. I'll make an agreement with you. I'm going to apply to a handful of schools. If I get in and I get scholarship, because I don't want to go just for no reason and make you guys pay a bunch of money because like I didn't know how scholarships worked back then either too. I'll go. So I applied to I think 8 schools in total, 4 in South Florida and then 4 out of state. I got into 6 of them, and the one school I applied to in California gave me over half tuition. And they said it was an academic scholarship. And I was like, are you guys sure? Because I did a lot. Like I was very extroverted in like the extracurriculars and stuff. But yeah, did not really care too much. I think I had a weighted GPA because of the school that I went to. I went to a private school. And so they counted my GPA a little bit higher than what it probably was. I probably had like a 3.0, but because of the higher classes, like the honors classes and stuff that I did, I got like a 3.6, 3.7. I liked history and English, and those were the 2 classes that I think that pushed me a little bit further, the more artistic classes, you know. I was always really interested in those 2 subjects, and I think those are the only 2 that I ever cared about, history, English, and drama. And then those 3 classes were the ones that kind of gave me the edge to be able to get into college. So I got that, you know, scholarship and a half to be able to come out here, and my parents were excited because
it was in Cali.
It was in Cali, in Orange County, Vanguard University.
Okay.
So I applied there, and
well, Vanguard, I think they have a girls wrestling program now.
Do they?
Maybe I'm getting it mixed up.
I mean, they could. They've been growing a lot
Vanguard.
recently, but I would be surprised, to be honest, because they were a very small school when I was there.
Can you look up if they have a?
He's gonna start getting ads.
Because I think one of our girls from Legacy, Tiger, I think she went to.
Oh, cool.
One of the I think it was that maybe it was that school.
It's a good school. It's very kind of like smaller still. Like it's been around for over 100 years, but it started as a small. My dad went there. My dad went there in the.
He went to Vanguard.
He went to Vanguard when it was Southern California College, and then it became a university in like 2000.
Okay.
And that's when it became Vanguard University. And so my dad went there. My older brother went there. So that's why I applied there. I was like, maybe they'll give me like a legacy scholarship type of thing. And I applied and I got in, and I went into the application process thinking, okay, if I get into this school, I'm going to pursue business because business is a good fallback. You know, it's always good to have that kind of mentality. If I get into this school, maybe it'll give me encouragement to pursue ministry because I have always had a heart for that when I was outside of like the scholastic side.
Vanguard Women's Wrestling Costa Mesa Lions.
Oh, there you go. I didn't know they had
it's in Costa Mesa.
Costa Mesa.
That's it. I think Tiger. She's one of our, you know, she came up through the program. I think she wrestled for San Fernando High, and I think she got a scholarship.
Yeah. It's a great school.
She got a scholarship there. Yeah, cool.
When I was there like 10 years ago, they didn't have a
yeah. Now everything's new, right? The girls wrestling.
They
women's wrestling.
They have grown immensely as a school, and like it's good to see because they put out a lot of great emphasis for the students. It's all about like your story matters, and we want to grow. But it's expensive. And so that was the struggle for me is like I went there with that, you know, scholarship and a half, and I started focusing on business. And then just because I had a little bit of like an interest in it, I applied for the theater shows. The theater director loved me. I loved the community there. And so I switched my major into theater, and I did my first year and a half there. I had a little bit more focus for school because now I was finally getting to do what I wanted to do. But it was different because I didn't know how to be on my own. You know, my entire life I was kind of sheltered in the sense that like it's me and my older brother and then my younger brother. But right before me, my mom had lost a child. I had an older sister.
Okay.
And after she passed away and then I was born, I was so like she was always protecting me. Babied, yeah. But it was tough because I didn't want to be baited. I was the one that was like climbing trees. She'd be like, "Where were you?" I was like, "Oh, I went to the skate park down in the other town." And she's like, "What?" You know, I was always wanting to be energetic and outside. And so that made it difficult for me to kind of learn to be independent truly. When I went to college is where I started to see that independence, and I didn't realize how easy I had it. And I didn't realize how easy I had it until a year after my first year of college. That's when the whole Brazilian corruption scandal came out in like 2014. You remember the Lava Jato, where they found out all the corruption stuff with Dilma and stuff? So my dad was still working in Brazil at the time, and that's when the real went from like 2 reais to $1 to I think 6 reais to $1. It's like about the same now. I think it's like 4 or 5 now.
Yeah,
but it was like
at 6 now. Something
is
like
it?
that.
Yeah. So it's like as bad as it was
Since
there.
Trump. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it was really bad for us at that time because I was in college. My older brother was done with school, but my younger brother was still in high school and private school. You have to pay tuition for that too, and so my dad's struggling to like make that 5 times to be able to pay for my university fees and stuff like that, and I'm like reaching out. I'm like, Dad, you gonna be able to send in the money? And he's like, yeah, next week. And the whole time he's expecting money to come in, but it just didn't work out because of the issues there in Brazil, where like all of the money he was getting was working to pay for his expenses in the business in Brazil. So I was struggling to get those initial payments in. So after like 2 months, I took a pause. I initially just took a pause. I was like, school started in August. I did school August, September, and then beginning of October, I was like, you know what? I don't think I'm going to be able to finish this semester. Let me just wait for my dad to catch up on finances. And then I just never went back. I paused, and I was thinking about going back to Florida just until, you know, my dad could catch up on finances because of the whole financial thing in Brazil. And then instead of me like taking 3 steps back, because at this point I was like, I want to be an actor. I made it to LA or to California, right? I want to be able to go to school, get a degree in acting, not realizing you don't need one, and then move to LA eventually and start working. And at that time, I started traveling back. I did it twice. Like I went to Florida and then back to California, Florida and then back to California. And then my mom was like, honey, I don't think your dad's going to be able to get the money in time for you to go back to school. Maybe you should just move back and just do like a gap year. And in my head, I was like, if I do that, I'm going to take like 3 steps back. So let me stay and like stay here and just figure it out. So I had a bunch of friends that worked in like actually, you know, weren't coddled as kids. So they were like, just go get a job. I was like, I don't know how to do that. And they're like, well, figure it out. Here, I have a friend who works at In-N-Out. You want to go work at In-N-Out? I was like, I mean, I like In-N-Out. So put in a good word for me. And my very first job at 19 was at In-N-Out Burger on 19th Street.
It's funny how on your wedding, was it your wedding day or your wedding?
Yeah, it was my second wedding day because of COVID, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw you in and out in Orange County
Yeah.
out of all like a
No,
random.
it was in San Marcos or whatever. Remember, it was like down in San Diego area.
San Diego,
Yeah.
just so random, like most random. And he's like, hey, Professor hey, Ben, hey.
I had only been training
out
for
of
like,
all the.
for like 3 or 4 months at that time too.
Yeah.
No, I love
You guys
it.
are all you had the suits on,
Yeah.
even the groomsmen.
I told my groomsmen, they were like, what do you want to do for like your bachelor party? I was like, In-N-Out. They're like, what do you want to do for the day of your wedding? I was like, In-N-Out. We wake up, put the suits on, go to In-N-Out. I love it. I love it in part because the food is really good. You know, even before I moved to California, I had been here and I always was like, this is really good food. I don't know if Kevin likes In-N-Out that much.
No.
He does. Okay, cool. But I always thought it was really good, like the food. And then when I started working there, I worked there out of like necessity because I got kicked out of school. So I had to get an apartment and I got connected with these guys that were like friends of friends. Didn't know them, but I needed to start paying rent. And at the time, my rent was really cheap. It was like $500 a month. But I didn't, $500 a month for someone who had never worked. I was like, I don't know what to do with all this money now. And In-N-Out always pays like $3 above minimum wage. So at the time, I think minimum wage was like $11 or something. So I was making $13, $14. And I was like, this is awesome. This is so cool. Having no concept of money as a 19-year-old. And started working, got really involved in the community. And that's where I started to like learn the aspect of like drive and that you can have good potential if you're given the opportunity to be mentored by people. My boss there, I had good mentors growing up, but they were like more, I would say like spiritual mentors and more character mentors as opposed to like job mentors, if that makes sense, or like goal mentors, right? So my boss at In-N-Out, his name was Rob. He was this guy who was like, I was in your same shoes. I had to drop out of school. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I jumped in In-N-Out, but I have a family with 4 kids now. I have my house paid off, all this different stuff, and it's just because I stuck with In-N-Out. So find what you want to do and stick with it and pour all of your energy
So
into it.
he was
He was my manager at
Oh,
In-N-Out.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But he was like
all those years, huh?
all those years.
Wow.
Yeah, he had been working for the company for like 15 years. And,
Wow.
and like in California, if you can own a home and
Yeah.
take care of 4 kids, and like he had like this big truck, all this stuff that like for me, I was like, I want to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And his main thing was like, you don't have to make In-N-Out your life. That's what I chose to do. But whatever you do, make sure to dedicate 110%.
Focus, yeah.
And that really started to change my mind. And another aspect of like the In-N-Out mentality is like everything you do it with quality, do it with friendliness, and then they focus on cleanliness, right? But do it with like composure is their main thing. And I was like, quality, friendliness, and cleanliness, composure. QFC is how they say it. And that's what I started to transition into a lot of my other aspects of life. How can I give good quality in, my work at Cheesecake now? How can I do it with the friendliness aspect with not only my coworkers, but also my boss and my guests? And then how can I focus on the composure that I am always maintaining? A lot of people can't do restaurant jobs, whether, that be like something you view in high regard or not. It's not an easy job if you don't know how to do it. You have to be able to maintain composure. And I think because I learned...
How you do one thing is how you do everything, right?
Right, exactly. Because I learned how to do that out of necessity at an early age, I learned to be able to maintain composed in a lot of difficult scenarios. Because then as I started to grow older and start to have more goals in life, like, okay, how do I want to like actually establish myself as an actor in LA? I got to maintain the same level of quality when it comes to like my performances. I never want to be that jerk. I never want to be that person that has an ego, that has arrogance behind their character. And then I want to always maintain composure under pressure, because it's not easy to carry a TV show or a movie or whatever. Luke, my friend who trains here now, he's working with Harrison Ford, like screen to screen. Me and him grew up like loving that. And I've asked him, I was like, dude, are you nervous? He's like, heck yeah, I'm nervous. But the way I'm able to like push through that and maintain my like composure and maintain all of the work that I put in before I step on a set and do my scenes with Harrison, dude, that's so cool. That's so cool to be able to like keep it, me and him vibe a lot in certain ways, but to see, because like we grew up together, kind of like we went to church together from middle school all the way up until high school. He went to New York for film school. I went to LA for theater school. And then we both ended up meeting again in LA. But yeah, just being able to have all those different like opportunities growing up, where it's like mentors in high school that make me focus on like, what is your spiritual and your more like intellectual character, and how are you nurturing that? And then afterwards, what's your goal in life, and how are you nurturing that? And then being able to have different adversities come your way and then be able to tackle them. Like, what are the things that you're doing in life to make yourself strive to be a bigger and better person?
What is your goal?
Yeah, I think my biggest goal is to be able, it's changed in a certain sense, because when I first moved out here, my goal was to be a famous actor. Why? A lot of the times I thought, is that a selfish goal? But I don't think it ever really was. I think my goal has always been to be able to have a certain platform to do good. And I think it's still there. I just have changed the perspective of how I view that. Because my thought process was, when I was younger, remember Kaká, the soccer player?
Yeah.
Yeah. Kaká would take his fame, and he was like one of my role models as a kid. He would take his fame, I think because he kind of looked like me. He was like a white Brazilian too, and I was like...
He was on one of the Gracie Mag covers back in the day.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Did he do jiu-jitsu?
I don't know why he was on there, but I think just because he was... yeah.
Well, he was my favorite player, and
amazing.
I think it was 2002.
I should find that magazine and send you a picture of it.
That'd be cool.
Because I saved them all.
Yeah. I think it was like 2002, and he was part of the World Cup team where the Brazil won. And when I was like 7 or 8.
Was he the captain?
No. I want to say... I think Ronaldo was still on the team at that time. I could be wrong. I was like 7 or 8. But anyways, I loved Kaká. And I remember watching interviews of him taking his fame and going out into the community and helping people. And he was also raised in the church. And he just gave me a lot of like similarities to myself where I was like, okay, he's raised in the church. He knows his values and his morals, and he wants to use the platform that he's been given, that he worked hard for, to then help other people. And I didn't know to what extent I wanted to do that, but I knew that I was interested in acting. I knew that I was pretty good at it. And I knew that I wanted to be able to have some kind of a platform to help people. Because, like I mentioned, I grew up doing missions works as well. So, like, from the time I was in 6th grade to 12th grade, I had been on, like, 6 or 7 mission trips. So I went to, like, Kenya, Honduras, Costa Rica.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I did a lot
Before you were, how old were you when you went?
My first one, I think it was 13. Yeah,
Wow.
I was 13-year-old.
Who'd you go with?
I would go either
Church?
with my church group or my school. So
Wow.
my first one, my school, we had like a leadership class. It was basically like how to be a leader.
Your high school?
Middle school, high school, private school. So
gotcha.
it was elementary, middle, and high school. So I started there in 5th grade, and I finished there until senior year.
So where did you guys go?
So-
Kenya?
So I went to Kenya with my church. I went to Honduras with my school, Costa Rica with my school, Haiti with
Wow.
my church. Yeah, Haiti was a big one because
Wow.
Haiti it was then, I'm pretty sure it still is now, it's the most impoverished
Yeah.
country on the Western Hemisphere.
Yeah.
And, we always think of poverty as like Africa, only over there. It's like, dude, it's like a 3 to 5 hour flight from here. And it's bad. They've still practice really crazy, like pagan witchcraft stuff where they sacrifice children and they don't take care of each other, and the government is so corrupt, and it's really sad to see because you think of that stuff as like not even third world, it's even past that.
Yeah.
But we went there, and we just, for a lot of the kids in like Africa and Haiti especially, it was the first time they're seeing white people, and that was a weird kind of surreal experience, but it helped broaden my mentality of like, okay, what is my life? How fortunate am I really? Because I'm even blessed to be able to go on this mission trip. Now, am I going to be a good steward of this opportunity? So I went and I learned so much about like being able to help people. Doesn't have to be, you have to have a big platform. You don't have to have fame. You don't have to have a lot of money, but it helps to have an understanding of how to pursue that goal, right? So when I went back home after those trips, I started looking for opportunities to like help in the homeless community, because Broward County, where I grew up, outside of like LA and New York, I think at the time it was either like 3rd or 4th the worst in the States. It's probably down now because they've worked a lot to help fix it. But it's like there's so many impoverished people around you. What are you doing with whatever platform God has given you to be able to help? And that's the thing that I've always wanted to do.
Not even money, right? But just emotionally and everything else,
exactly.
right?
Yeah. There was this one guy that
They can be rich and wealthy family, but just empty inside, sad.
Yeah, and that's kind of going
From
back
neglect.
to like what are you doing to always better yourself so that then you can be a light into the world. And that's always what my goal has been, but it's grown in the spectrum of like, how am I going to view this? Because before it was to be a famous actor. For what goal? To be able to have a platform. Now it's just to be a light. I think that's kind of been my goal, because it's transitioned because my priorities have changed with Celeste. It's changed now that I'm having a baby.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you, yeah. And it's a big shift in my brain in how I want to be able to pursue these things. Like I still want to pursue acting because I feel like that's what God's called me to do, and he's given me so many open doors. But if he gives me another door where he's like, I don't think you should do acting anymore, I think you should focus on jiu-jitsu, then I'm going to go through it. And that's the door that he's been giving me over and over again. I'll put myself out there. Competing is hard. Competing is hard to like wrap your brain around, especially when like I grew up doing team sports, soccer, football. The closest one I did individual was like track and field. But even in track and field, there's like a team aspect. And I wasn't really good at track and field either. My best sport was soccer, by the way. You asked about sports earlier, and I was pretty good at playing defensive positions in soccer. So I was a sweeper or fullback, and I really enjoyed playing soccer. I played that almost every year from 6th grade to senior year. I think I only took off my junior year because my parents didn't let me because my grades went down. But I always emphasized on like team sports because I like the camaraderie and all of that. And so I didn't really know what to think when I started doing jiu-jitsu. I started doing it mainly because after the COVID lockdowns and all the riots started breaking out, I think Celeste and I were engaged, and a lot of them started getting close to where I lived.
Oh wow.
And
You were in Hollywood?
no,
at
I
the
was
time?
I was in Glendale, but
Okay.
like they were threatening to do. I don't know if you remember, but
I remember. Yeah.
yeah, they were threatening to like go to the Americana in the
Yeah,
Galleria.
yeah. We
and
stayed here overnight one of the nights, and Burbank
Yeah.
PD and Glendale PD did an amazing job.
They
Didn't
did.
work, and
I-
plus all the Armenians, you know. like-
Yeah, they were like,
they were
try it.
not having it. Yeah.
They were like, try it, try coming here. And but I remember thinking at that time, I was like, dude, I don't know what to do. I don't have any, like, every guy has that machismo thought process, like, oh, I'll mess someone up if they come into my house, if they mess with my girl. It's like, I don't know what I'm doing. I had been in lots of fights with my brothers growing up, and I got like messed around with, like, not, I was never really bullied, but you know, I was tossed around a little bit because I was smaller by like some guys on the football team, but that's about it. And I had no idea what I was doing when it came to like that self-defense aspect. But I proposed to Celeste, COVID happened, and then this overwhelming sensation of like, dude, that's someone's baby girl. You better know how to protect someone's baby girl because he's entrusting you to her. And he's not only entrusting you financially and emotionally and spiritually and mentally and like all the different facets of life, but also physically. And so to a certain extent, you better know how to handle yourself a little bit. And I didn't want to just be the guy that like, okay, I'll buy a gun. It's like, no, I don't want to have to rely on lethal force. So I started researching different martial arts and stuff like that. And the one that kept popping up over and over again was jiu-jitsu. It's like, okay, I could try ninjutsu or I could look for ninjutsu somewhere, but I don't know if that's practical. I just thought it would be fun at the time. No, so I looked up a couple of schools and never really followed through with it until after Celeste and I got married. So we got married in February, and then a couple months later in October is when I stepped in here for the first time because we had just moved to Burbank, in February. And she found
from
it.
Glendale?
From Glendale, yeah. So I went Florida, Costa Mesa to Vanguard. After I had to drop out of school, I went to live with some friends in Irvine. Lived there for like 4 years, three years, and then I moved up to LA by myself and set up my own place. And I lived here in Glendale for like 5 years, and then proposed to Celeste, and then we moved in together when we got married. 4 years ago in February.
Wow.
Yeah. So moved in together in February. October came around. She found you guys, which was cool because she had been driving up and down here. And she's like, let's go try it together because she knew about the benefits of jiu-jitsu.
She just drove by Legacy or she found it online?
I think she might have found it on Yelp.
Okay.
And I think she had been to Açai Jungle by herself once before when I was at work. I think something like that. I'm not sure. And so she was the one that came in. And then that day that I came in, you were the one that taught us.
Oh.
Do you remember that? Which you don't teach fundamentals. So it was special.
It's interesting. Yeah. People always have those like these black belts, you know, like because I met them at the door or, you know, made the effort, right? But you just never know, right? One small act of whatever it is, you know.
Yeah,
makes a difference.
I don't know if whoever taught noon was sick or gone that day, and then Edson was teaching advanced, so you just jumped in and helped teach fundamentals. And I think it was me and Celeste and one other person.
Did I teach the scissor sweep?
I think you taught double leg takedown and scissor sweep. And I remember Celeste was getting frustrated because...
I remember that, actually.
Yeah.
I remember that.
So that was crazy to think
about. I remember
that.
Yeah, I remember that day.
Yeah, a little over 3 years ago. Because I didn't know that wasn't the norm for the head instructor to teach the fundamentals class. I had no idea what was going on. And I thought it was fun that first day. Celeste was like, I'll try it again, maybe. And by the third class, she was like, I don't really like it. And I was like, this is hard, but I could see myself getting potentially better suited with the mentality of defense, self-defense. So I pushed myself. The first 2 months, I was like, I don't really like this either, but I'm going to keep going and pushing myself because, like I mentioned, I never had fought before. So that physicality aspect, it had never been harnessed inside of me. And when I kept pushing myself and I started getting better and the things started to click and they started to click and I started to get a better understanding of positioning and base and all that different stuff. And then, 2 months go by and I'm doing pretty good. And then I think a third month goes by and then Professor Joey, who's teaching the fundamentals class, he's like, did you lose a stripe? And I was like, no, I never got one. Was I supposed to ask? He's like, no, never ask. And then that class, he gave me 2 stripes. And it was one of those things where like from there, I was like, okay, cool. Not that I needed it. I can do this. Yeah. And then it was just like, started really dedicating myself to the competition class that Edson used to teach. And I started making friends, and people started teaching me different ways and different styles. And it took a minute for me to understand how I learn, you know, the kinesthetic and then the auditory aspect of like, there's different styles of doing it. And now I think that's helped me a lot to be able to learn too, not only with the kids, but also with the adults classes, because some people learn by seeing, some people learn by doing, and then some people learn by having it explained. So when I teach, I try and focus on all three and making it really, really fluent for people to be able to learn as best as possible. I would never have expected that I'd be coaching ever growing up. I was always like, whenever my brain processed, like, what do I want to do? Doctor, lawyer, teacher, whatever. Teacher was always the first one to be X'd out. I think because I just always had like such a chaotic relationship with a lot of my teachers. There's a lot of teachers that I admired and that influenced me growing up, but never really thought that I'd be in this position. Yeah, it was.
And
very
here you
surprising.
are, the head kids coach.
Yeah. Yeah.
The DH department head.
Yeah. Huge honor, honestly, that like you guys thought about me and took that into consideration, because like I said, never would have thought that, you know. I try and do my best, but that's
it. That's all we can do.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have much opportunity to teach when you were coming up and stuff? Because I know you were killing it with a lot of your growth in the jiu-jitsu world and stuff like that, and being American and all that stuff. But like, did you teach a lot when you were coming up in the belt ranks and stuff too?
I was thinking about that this morning and just the history and stuff. And I started actually teaching as a white belt because there was nobody else, you know. And there's nobody else. That's how we would learn. And we teach each other. And then blue belt, I was like a big deal back in the day. To be a blue belt was a huge deal. And so I started teaching. And so I taught all the way through. Even taught in Brazil when I was a purple belt, you know. Started making a name for myself in the tournament scene. I started teaching in Brazil, and then I just never stopped. And then we started the first gym in 2000, right, in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Yeah.
So that's 25 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
you had your black belt by then, though, right?
Actually, I was still a brown belt, almost black belt,
almost
you know.
black belt, yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy to think, because, you know, people don't have, unless you're in the world, you don't really have an understanding of how the belt rankings and all that stuff works. And even for me, like, people always ask, like, how'd you work to get your blue belt in a year? And I was like, dude, I just busted my butt and showed up every day.
They're right.
Yeah, I was here every day, so much so that they were like, you want a job? And
asking questions, being a good person, helping others.
Yeah.
That's all those things, right, involved.
I started like proselytizing.
Not feeling entitled, not, you know, just thinking you're better than anybody, right? Being humble and just doing the work, right? The right work.
I never want to be someone that people think I have an ego when I come into anything, because it's not about that. It's about bettering myself and then hopefully bettering each other. If I come in with an ego, I hope someone smacks it down. You know, if I come in arrogant, smack it down.
You know, because we test people out, right? You came in and I'm sure you taught a class or two, and then you did good. What, you were a natural, right? You see it, right? You see it, you feel it. What do you love about teaching?
I love seeing the way that a lot of people grow, you know, in the sense that the people who think they can't do it, whether they just need an adjustment in my teaching style or their reception of it, you know, maybe they need to have it explained to them 3 times. Then it's on me to be patient enough to teach it 3 times. That's fine. But when they can hopefully eventually get it, it's very encouraging. And that's where I feel like I'm being a light. That's where I feel like I'm succeeding in my goal, whether that be in jiu-jitsu or in other aspects of life, especially with like the kids. There's one student that he moved to a different state, but he came in as a white belt, and his mom was very worried because he was getting like bullied a lot, and he was a tiny kid. And me and him bonded really well, started doing privates together, and he would come into class and he would not be able to do certain aspects of the technique, like scissor sweep. He's like, I can't do it. He's too big. I'm no good at this. And he starts really tearing himself down. And it's just crazy to see like the mental warfare that some people have.
We all have, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah. And it's
the negative self-talk and
but if you don't know how to combat that, right? If you don't know how to encourage yourself back up, you're gonna just get beaten down. And so to be able to be someone that can teach you how to combat that is very, very inspiring. And I love that. I love
rewarding.
Yeah, it's very rewarding to be able to have an opportunity to teach anybody, kids or adults, and they don't know what they're doing, or maybe they do have a little bit of like physicality to them, or maybe they're bigger or whatever, and be able to show them like you can always learn more. You know, there's people that are 6'3", weigh 215 pounds. I'm 160, 5'8", and they come in with a little bit of like a chip on their shoulder, and I'm like, all right, we'll go. I'm not going to be a jerk about it, but I'm going to show you that there's always stuff to learn, right? Everybody should be humble. Maybe you're going to show me something in the middle of our role that you didn't even know you were doing on purpose, and I got to stay humble enough to receive that. You know, I think that that's always a really cool aspect.
Yeah, Cans of Grace, I remember. I think it was John Danaher. Somebody taught, like, you know, just being open to, like, your students teaching you, right? Have you seen this? Have you tried that? And let me see. Oh, wow, that's really good. Being open to it, right?
Yeah.
Not being, I'm a black belt, you're a white belt. What do you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's fun too to be able to learn from so many different people here. Like I was kind of reflecting on that earlier. The fact that like you're so well connected, you have such a fantastic knowledge base. So many of the students here, or sorry, the coaches that have been your students here, have such a fantastic knowledge base. And then the people that you bring in, I was thinking about how like when I teach cross collar choke from mount, I teach it from the way that my very first month here, Rafael Lovato taught me. It's like, who the heck has that opportunity? The way that I teach breaking out of the guard is the way that Lucas Valenti taught me. You know, the way that these people come in and they teach oftentimes more basic techniques, but these basic techniques flow into every aspect of your jiu-jitsu. And now, some guys that's like 6'2", really long legs, they think they can hold me into their guard. And I'm like, I know Lucas Valenti's guard break technique. And it's going to be tough for you to sweep me because I have that base and I have that foundation. Yeah, there's other ways to do things, but I think that it's really cool to be able to have a lot of these people pouring into you. Having people pouring into you always is such a key aspect of life. I've learned, you know, in my young adulthood, is always be learning. I mentioned like multiple times that I wasn't really good at school and I didn't really like doing that stuff. But in the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, I really learned how to learn. And I got really into audiobooks. And so now it's like I've read more books in the last 4.
Learning how to learn.
Learning how to learn.
Become a student of how to learn.
Yeah. I've learned, I've read and like learned about different subjects in the last 4 years than I did in the last 29 years of my life type of thing, you know? I just finished a book yesterday about like the ancient Greece and like how the Roman Empire was paved by Alexander the Great and his death and all that stuff. You know, it's like things that
You're saying you were into history.
Yeah.
What kind of history? What histories are you a fan of?
Yeah, so I loved learning about ancient history and how so much of that paved our
Which ones or which?
So a lot of like Greek myth and history. So like I loved hearing about like the Peloponnesian War and like Sparta and Athens and about learning there, and then the histories with Babylon and the Babylonian Empire, or sorry, Persian Empire, Persian Empire, and how they came in and started to conquer, and then the Macedonian Empire was established in northern Greece, and then they started to attack and, you know, finish off the Persian Empire, and that's where Alexander the Great, exactly. And then after Alexander the Great's death, because he was only 32 when he died, he left kind of his empire in shambles between his top generals. And then there was a big bloody war afterwards. But that paved the way to the Roman Empire.
Right.
And so much, there's that joke, I don't know if you've heard about it. It's like guys think about the Roman Empire at least once a day. You heard of that?
No.
Yeah, it's just like this thing where women would ask their boyfriends or their husbands, be like, how often do you think about the Roman Empire? It's like, oh, every day. Like, why? It's just something that like people take for granted, that so much of our society is still based on what happened back then. Even the English language, even our roads are structured, like the way that a car's sizing is structured is based off of the Roman chariot size. Silly things like that like I don't need to know this, but I think it's cool and I think it's interesting. Definitely been in like that dad mode of like learning different history things for a long time. One of the trips I was able to do when I was in high school, I went to Europe and I went to Normandy, and I got to go on the D-Day beach.
Okay.
And
cool.
That was surreal. That was really surreal to be able to go there and kind of like intake that because I was 16 or 17 at the time, and I was like, dude, there were kids my age that came on this beach.
You've seen Saving Private Ryan?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Like movies like that.
Tom Hanks getting shipped in on whatever those ships were,
boats,
those
yeah,
boats with and just running out.
Yeah. Crazy. The fact that like actual World War II veterans watched that and they thought they were there again. Like Spielberg did such a great job remaking that whole sensation. But like that, a lot of the history that I like was influenced heavily by a lot of the movies that I would watch too. So like 300, Troy, Alexander the Great with forget his name. The Oliver Stone Alexander the Great movie. Yeah. And then Saving Private Ryan. It's funny because I had never really thought about the fact that I would be into fighting or learning martial arts before I actually got into it. But then after I started doing it, I was like, oh, wait, I like this stuff already. I love Rocky. I love the movie Warrior. You know, it's not a great movie, but Never Back Down. You know what I mean? I was already kind of paving all that stuff in my brain before I actually had the opportunity to do it. But yeah, I liked World War II, the histories. I always thought it was very interesting, the way that so much of like the power struggles were being influenced by each other, the way that like Russia was our ally and then was immediately not our ally right after World War II ended. My family on my mom's side is very Italian, so learning how even the Italian immigration came in from like the late 1800s, how we were almost, at least on my mom's side, they were almost all moving to New York with all the Italian immigrants in like the late 1800s. But there was like, I think from what my mom had explained, there was no room on the boat that was going to New York. So instead they went to Brazil. So it was like very slight thing could have changed my potential future in life, where it's like my family went to Brazil instead of America in that Italian immigration, you know? So yeah, and then I never really thought about it before, but I was raised in the church, so I learned a lot about like biblical history as well. And so learning about the kingdom of Israel, the kingdom of Judah, learning about the Babylonian Empire and how there was the exilic period, and there's so much history that's wrapped up into that. And then when you go to like, because as a kid you read it and you don't really think to kind of like check it. And now as an adult, I'm still always learning more and more and more history and stuff. And I'm like, dude, there's like so much evidence, like
and you can learn so much, right, from this history situations, right? Historical things.
Yeah, there's so much like archaeological history stuff where you see how people just would focus so much on really establishing themselves as like, we are the best kingdom, and every other kingdom worse than us, right? And then one battle later, it's flipped on the head. And in part, it's almost like someone's got a sense of humor to be able to think that you can just, you know, establish yourself. And sometimes they did. Sometimes they established themselves for
I think we started the podcast like that, right? Saying how it can be flipped one moment to the next.
Yeah, even like the Roman Empire, going back to that. They were in power for hundreds of years. But eventually, it's like, they still have
barbarians came over.
It was barbarians, dude. Yeah, the
Germans,
Lombards. The Germans, they came in and wiped them out. And then the Byzantine Empire wiped them out. And they established themselves. Emperor Justinian, he was like, we're the top dog.
Yeah.
Okay. Then they're out. It's very like flip, flip, flip. That's history, you know? And I think it's interesting because you look back on it and you get to see how much of that has influenced your life. But then what's important is you take that in, you process it, and then how do you make that into your character, into who you are as a person, right?
Yeah. Have you seen that TV show Barbarians?
Yeah,
I think it's on Netflix.
I've seen.
It's a German series.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but
it's about Arminius. Like Arminius is he was the First Reich, the German.
Yeah.
Like he united all the tribes, and he was actually they would take the kids, and he got taken to Rome, and then he flipped. He went back home to Germany, and he flipped, and then he organized the tribes and fought the Romans and beat them.
Yeah,
and that was the beginning of that.
Yeah.
I was obsessed with the Roman Empire when I was a kid because I grew up in Germany.
Right.
And they used to have this comic book called Asterix.
Oh, okay.
Have you seen it?
No, never heard of it.
And
I grew up with Batman and Superman, Spider-Man.
Yeah. It was just like, it was about this, it was the Roman Empire time, and they would just travel all over. and just it was really cool. So I just really loved the Roman Empire and just all the history, all the cool things that came with that, and then also World War II. Just because
Yeah.
of just the movement and
Crazy.
almost right, so many things.
World War II has been one that's like been really prevalent in my head more recently in the last like 4 years because of COVID and the way that they really used all of the propaganda.
Yeah,
Back then.
exactly, same thing, right?
Like the way, oh my gosh.
Same format, yeah,
Oh my
same
gosh.
system, same patterns.
The way a whole country and then everybody within that and then the Axis powers in general were just brainwashed and they changed so much of their mentality without thinking about what they were compromising about. Dude, you're like devaluing someone else's life so much that you're willing to wipe out
Yeah.
people. Genocide is crazy. And it's so sad to think because this is why, like, for me, I've always taken a step back, right? Or tried to focus on taking a step back and being like, okay, how can I process whatever information is being given to me? And then I can go in and really think about it critically. I don't want to just be rash about whatever decision I make. I want to think about it critically. And oftentimes, whatever is like the most dangerous thing probably is true. Take it into consideration, but it's true. Genocide, not good. Like I don't care why you think you're in the right, but a lot of those people were just easily brainwashed. Easily, and is everyone's perspective or whatever. But it's crazy to think about.
Yeah. And how fast, right?
Yeah.
Those things can happen.
Was there much history, or not history? Was there much of that talked about when you were growing up in Germany?
In Germany?
Yeah, because you went to school there, right?
I went to school there, German
Yeah.
schools, everything.
How was that like?
It was interesting, right? Because I forgot I didn't forget, but I stopped speaking English at home. So my mom, we came back in like 3rd grade for a year. I was like a little German kid,
Yeah.
She wasn't responding in English anymore, so we came back for a year. But I went to from kindergarten to like 5th grade, and so they separated the class by religion. Catholic was one class. All the kids in that class
Interesting.
room was Catholic.
Is it in Germany?
Germany, back in the day, and I'm
Yeah.
sure it's different now. Protestant,
Okay.
and then the like
Orthodox?
Turkish kids. No, they're atheists. They just call
Oh.
them atheists. Like Turkish kids, Muslim, like whatever. They were just atheists.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And then did they teach you guys differently? Do you know?
I don't know.
Oh, you don't know?
I don't remember, but I don't
That's
know.
trippy.
But they whatever it was, they separated us by religion.
Even that is like,
And I remember like just like because there's a lot of like Turkish kids. There's a German, because I think after World War II, I was like, why are there so many Turkish? Not that many, but Turkish families or Turkish people in Germany, right? And it's like after World War II, they needed help rebuilding the country, and so a lot of Turkish families moved there
wow,
to rebuild Germany.
interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so
See, in history, I'm learning right
Yeah.
now.
the whole Armenian Turkey, like the genocide, right? But there's like it's so interconnected. There's so many Turkish families that helped Armenians, vice versa. I got along with everybody. I remember like I was during the World Cup. They had the World Cup in Mexico in '86, and they had those books that you would collect the stickers, you'd buy the package,
yeah.
And I got all of them, and I was missing one, and I used to play soccer and with all the kids, and this one Turkish kid is like, which one? You train him in the schoolyard, and he had the one I needed. And I was like, well, how much? I would give him like whatever, a bunch of money, a bunch of whatever. And he's like, no, don't worry, I got you. Don't worry. And he gave it to me,
Wow.
That was my last sticker,
That's cool.
And so I don't know. It was, just interesting. Just the whole how things were set up,
It's cool to see how that's like ingrained in your brain
Yeah,
to
yeah.
this day.
Yeah,
you
to
know?
this day.
It's a little.
And people are people, and the whole political agenda, like even going back to, I was in Armenia and Russia, right, and just even Azerbaijan, and how the jiu-jitsu, one of his, the main kind of coaches at the gym, he got taken out by a drone strike. They went to A18. You go to the military,
Yeah.
and he got sent to that Açai, like it's a part that's all Armenians. It's like it was part of Armenian ancient land, and it was a contested area that's like on the map. It's part of Azerbaijan, but it was actually Armenia.
Wow.
Anyway, in the '90s when the Soviet Union went down, like the Armenians. It was it's all Armenians.
Yeah.
Anyway, during the pandemic, they attacked. Azerbaijan attacked, and so a bunch of the Armenian kids had to go to war, and one of the kids was from the jiu-jitsu gym, from the legacy there, got taken out. A bunch of the young men. So tragic, so tragic. And then we were just talking about how, like he's friends with like these Azerbaijani jiu-jitsu professors, from Azerbaijan, and like one of his brothers, his family, it's like, but it's like, and then he said, you start to get to know them, and it's like, oh, my grandmother was raised by Armenians, or this or that, you never know. And there's like so many good people, and all different, good and bad, right? And maybe you think they're your friends, whatever, but it's like, it's people are, got to know, you have to know their person, right? You can't be just so general, like, oh, because he's this, he's that, right?
Yeah.
Judge a book by its cover, right?
Yeah. It's funny. Like I was talking to a coworker of mine, and she's very much one of those people that you're like, blue hair, tattoos everywhere, piercings, all that stuff. And she was very shocked to see how, because she knows I'm a Christian, and she was shocked how nice I treated her. And
she was what?
She was shocked how nice.
But what's her religion?
She's I think she said she's like a witch.
A witch?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
But she told me the other day randomly. She was like, I just wanted to say, like, I was very surprised how nice you treat me. And I was like, what? She's like, yeah, I was just surprised how nice you treat me. And I was like, oh, why would I treat you any differently? And she's like, well, because my beliefs on things. And I'm like, my main core belief is treat your neighbor as you would want to be treated. And then love your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And how am I supposed to do that first, that second one? Love your God with all your heart, mind, and strength is the first one. And then love your neighbor as yourself. How am I supposed to do that second one, the first one, if I can't do the second one properly? So how am I supposed to treat you any poorly? Doesn't matter what you believe in. I'm not going to treat you poorly, because my focus is we are all human beings. We're all on the same planet.
Yeah, we're all interconnected,
all
like
interconnected, it or not. Like it or not, exactly. And at the end of the day, we're all, you trace back ancestry, at one point or another, we're going to be connecting. And it's horrible to think that people have been twisted in their brains this way or that way to have a certain level of tribalism that doesn't have to skew very far. So, you'll see families fighting against families and all that different stuff. And it's so sad to think, because to a certain extent, those people out there are kind of neighbors. Yeah. Right? And to have like young kids, it's funny because now I think like teenagers are young kids. I feel like I'm starting to get to that outside of being a dad soon. Yeah. I'm starting to get into that mode where I'm like, oh,
you're still a baby.
Yeah, exactly. You're still a baby. I know, that's why I always check myself when I say it, because people were like, oh, you're only 29, Ben. The baby's coming right after I turn 30, which is cool.
Good timing.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just interesting to think about, how everybody is very tribalistic, and what can I do when it comes to like my positioning, my platform that I currently have is to try and teach people to be, to love each other as they would want to be loved, as they would want to be treated, treat each other as they would want to be treated. I think that's a really important aspect in whatever way you phrase or frame it, that you don't have to have all these different hostilities. And I think it's really sad to see that so much of the tribalism that is in our world comes from the top down. So whatever platform you have, I think it's important for you to restructure your platform to reemphasize, like, treat others as you would want to be treated. I think that's really key. When new students come in, and whether they come in with an ego or whether they come in with their morale broken because they were bullied, or they think that they can't do it or whatever, treat them as I would want to be treated.
Look different, right?
Yeah.
Come in, look different, or however they are, and you see people transform and then turn into something completely. Yeah.
I've told Celeste before.
Opposite.
I'm like, if there's ever a time where I come in and because I've had similar conversations with her, and I'm like, and I'm speaking against what I've told you, or what I'm doing against what I've spoken to you that I want to be, tell me flat out to my face, check me where I'm at, hold me accountable. Because if we don't hold each other accountable, then that's where we can get into that slippery slope of starting to be worse.
Yeah.
Worse. And that's what I don't want to be. I never want to be like a bad example, especially like going into that dad mode, you know? People ask me often now, like, are you nervous? Like, how you feeling? Like, are you excited? Or like, are you bummed that it's not a boy? And like, honestly, I'm more surprised that it's not a boy because I have a lot of guy cousins and a lot of guys in my family, but I kind of get why to a certain extent. Like, people are like, are you sad that it's not a boy? I'm like, no, but I kind of understand why God's given me a girl, because there's too many boys and my mom is ready to have a granddaughter. My mom has always wanted to have a girl in the family. And so she's like,
God
over the
bless
moon.
him.
Yeah, honestly. And yeah, the idea of like being in that mindset of like, okay, now every kind of like thing that I pour into myself, right? I could spend hours and hours playing video games or watching TV that's nonsensical, that doesn't really matter. Or I could pour into myself to be a better person for my daughter. I could pour into myself to be a better person to my students, to my friends, to my wife, to my parents, to my brothers, everybody around me. I want them to see that I'm pouring into myself so that I can then treat them like how I would want to be treated. I think that that's a really, and like, I'm not being like, everyone should do this. It's more so like, I think this is, it's important, man.
Yeah.
You know?
Well said, man. Well said. And that's it, you know.
Any advice about being a girl dad?
Being a girl dad?
That's what I wanted to ask you. I was curious because like you got two, and I know you weren't expecting two twins at the same time too in that regard. I was kind of.
I mean, you know, we do our best, right? Just be there, you know, love them, be there. There's gonna be different phases, right?
Yeah.
From them being little babies to little girls to, but just be there, be present, love them.
They're 16.
Treat the mom well. You know,
Yeah.
That's the. I think that's the example, right? That they have, you know.
Yeah. That's one thing that I've always heard is like the way that you treat your wife is how your daughter will look for a husband to treat her, you know, or a future boyfriend or whatever.
Yeah.
The girls are 16.
16.
Yeah. Has that been, you know, an interesting, difficult transition? Because they always say like when they're little, it's easy. When they get into teenage years, it gets harder.
Beautiful, man. I'm just grateful for every moment I get with them. Like I love that I have the opportunity with Serenade because of all the wrestling and all the combat stuff, you know, to be connected with her. But, you know, Sona too, it's like they're just so amazing, you know, they're also smart and capable in their own ways, right? Very different, but like so amazing at the whatever they do, you know? So yeah, just grateful, you know,
I love that.
to have them in every phase, you know. Especially you know, it's funny that when they become teenagers they start, you know, boys and different things like that, and they start treating like the dad like really bad, but I don't take it personal, you know. Like I said, I still get to be I'm still connected, you know. So I feel really lucky.
Good.
You know, because they even though they still treat me good, you know. Even though I was saying I have feelings too, you know. Once they started like shifting, you know, how they were thinking.
Yeah.
But I'm grateful, for every part.
Well, you're a great dad, and you know it's funny for me to see it because like I see the way that you interact with Sevon being the oldest and a guy, and then the way you interact with the girls, like you give them tenderness, but at the same time you're firm when you have to be. And even like with Serenade, you know, Serenade is doing all this martial arts stuff, and there's a certain level of like coach dad, you know. And I'm curious because I've told Celeste, I'm like she can do ballet and all the stuff you want her to do, but she's also going to learn judo and jiu-jitsu and self-defense. Because I would hate to be a dad that doesn't know that my daughter knows how to protect herself. Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
That's something that I definitely, you know, want to find a balance. I think that's going to be
I think it's such an amazing thing you can give your kids, you know, girl or boy. It's just this martial art kind of lifestyle. And like I was told my kids, all of them, you know, like, you know, whether they become a professional with it or not, like I just want them to have this a part of their lives because I think it's like one of the best tools you can have in life for you to be your best, you know.
Whether you use it or you don't, you just have it. Yeah.
Right.
Kind of like the saxophone thing I said, right?
Exactly,
like, like I like it.
A skill set.
It's there, but like I don't really care to use it every day or whatever. And then when one of the things that I've wanted to kind of like process or that I have been processing is like I love my parents and the way that they raised us, but the way that, like I mentioned, I was very kind of like sheltered. I think if my parents had noticed, like, oh, Ben likes being outside, let's encourage him more to like do Boy Scouts. I would have loved to do Boy Scouts because, you know, we did the survival tech fit thing, and I want to be able to do more stuff like that because I've always had a heart for like the outdoors and wilderness, but I never had much opportunity to do it. So that stuff,
Being open, right? To
being open to it,
to what your
and then
kids want
encourage
or need,
what your kids want.
and support them,
Yeah.
Even though maybe you don't agree with it, right?
Right. Yeah. And I think that's like an interesting parental shift. You know, for I think the older generation, it was like, oh, you want to do that? Well, too bad. You know, it's not in the books or whatever.
Yeah.
Figure it out. And then I think, I don't know, I could be wrong. And every parent is different. So God bless every parent. But I think that the mentality has shifted a little bit where it's like, oh, you know, Serenade really wants to do track and field more than jujitsu. Or sorry, Sona wants to really do track and field and cross country more than jujitsu. We're going to really pour into that. You know, Serenade really wants to focus on wrestling. We're going to really pour into that as opposed to jujitsu. But always be encouraging them to try and be an open book. I think that that's a note that like I've kind of jotted down in my dad book of notes that I've been making.
That's it.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. Thank you, brother. Thank you for I think you're the top recruiter of bringing people to legacy, you know, over the years, you know, these last whatever how many years, you're always bringing
great.
somebody new and they've stayed, and you know, families are being created from the introductions and from the bringing people here.
I
and
forgot about that.
your friends and people trust you, you know, and you know, going to the cheesecake factory and your manager comes out and you know, thanks us for lending you or having you be a part of, you know. It just they really value you know, because of who you are as a person.
It's a community and it's a family that like I was not expecting to find. It's definitely a godsend. I love it, and it's one of those things that I proselytize. You know, I tell people about it all the time. I'm like, if I get a hint that you mention working out or fighting or anything like that, there was a coworker yesterday. I went to work and I was like, you have any New Year's resolutions? She's like, yeah, I want to go to the gym more. I was like, what gym you go to? Yeah, you ever tried martial arts? You want to? And then like I have my whole pitch on trying to sell them on it, and it's not to get people in the door.
That's from the heart. They
me.
trust you. They trust you. Because you want them to do good.
I want them to do good because it's like, especially when
you want to help them.
Yeah,
you want to help them.
Especially, you know, coming in here when I first started and having people like Danny, like Vichi's Danny, the way that she beat me up so many times left and right, and then Monica and Andrea and like all the people that, especially when I was starting out, you know, now I know better understanding of like how to be defensive and all that stuff, but they still put so much pressure on me. It's like, dude, you don't have to be the big, strong person. So like, I pitch it to women oftentimes like it's the best martial art for a woman to learn. You know how to handle the pressure of someone that's bigger than you or stronger than you, and then knowing how to use your body against them. And then also it's like for them and for guys, I'm like, I played football, soccer, and track. Even though I wasn't the best, I was always active. And I'm in better shape now at 29 than I ever was when I was a teenager. And it's because of jiu-jitsu and also tac fit. You know, tac fit, when I don't use it, then I start to feel the pain coming in. You know, jiu-jitsu becomes a little bit harder, whether it be incrementally, 10%, 20% every other week. I do a lot of tac fit stuff at home, like this last couple months that Celeste has been struggling with the morning sickness. I'll do a lot of tac fit movement at home. And it really makes a difference. So
awesome.
Having that whole structure. I want to start getting more into Muay Thai too, because I hurt my knee like a year ago, and so I had to stop because of that, but it's feeling better now, so I want to try and start diving into more of that. Hold me accountable.
Love it. Love it. Well, thank you, brother. Thank you for the person you are, you know, spreading the good word, being that person, the leader, you know, helping with all the teaching classes and helping, you know, helping all our students, you know, be the best version of themselves, you know.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you for the opportunity and the platform that you've given me to be able to do it. I love that, you know. Never would have expected it, and you've become a great mentor and leader in that regard, and I really appreciate the fact that you have welcomed me with open arms. And so many people here have welcomed me with open arms, and never thought that I would have found that aspect of like, come here, you know, in LA. Because everyone talks about LA being kind of closed off, but it's like, no, you guys welcomed me with open arms and allowed me to find my place here. And I really appreciate it. And it's definitely a blessing. So, yeah.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.